We covered it in Stock Watch. There's not much more to say about the overtime decision. If you're just tuning in, all three of us would have kicked had we won the toss.
I think that was like universal. I think 100 and however many million people were watching that game. Let's say 70 gave two craps about the game. I think 68 million of us were all saying the same thing. Like, same thing in college. Everyone's guaranteed a shot to touch the ball. Why on earth wouldn't you want to know what you need? It gives you an extra down.
Well, yeah, and it's like it played out that way. Like if you look at San Francisco's one overtime drive,
yeah,
they stalled out on 3rd and 4 at whatever it was, the 11, right? The Chiefs 11, and they kicked the field goal.
Yeah.
Well, imagine if that were the drive after. They deferred and the Chiefs had the first drive, whether they scored 0, 3, or 7.
Yeah.
How much better is it to know what you need? And then you can decide what plays. You know what I mean? Like,
sure.
Like that's exactly why.
And then have an extra play to accomplish it with Patrick freaking Mahomes.
But to be fair, in this particular scenario, it would have been, okay, it's 4th and 4 at the 11. We can tie the game with a field goal, or we can go for the touchdown and try to win this game. But at least you put it in your own hands, like how you want to deal with it. Whereas if you kept the ball, so you drove down first, you have to take the points there, right? Yeah. You just have to take 3 because the unknown of what happens next. And that is where you get in trouble because you're playing against Patrick Mahomes, who almost certainly will drive down and stick the dagger in your heart.
This is weird. And look, I don't think it was the worst decision in the world. I didn't understand it, but I get Shanahan's logic. He claims that they talked about it, and their idea was they wanted the ball 3rd. Their idea was if both sides go down, kick field goals, or both sides go down and get touchdowns, they want to have the ball when it comes to sudden death.
Right. You want to be the first to have the sudden death opportunity.
I don't know. Just the idea of you're thinking that far down the road as opposed to what's ahead of you. And by the way, and I think details matter, right? Details win games. And the fact that multiple 49ers claimed that they had no idea even what the rules were.
And Juszczyk said he thought they took the ball first because he assumed they wanted to get the touchdown and just win the game. Yeah. Like, it doesn't work that way.
Well, how many of them even knew that the overtime
It sounds like multiple changed. 49er players didn't
even
know.
Armstead said he knew when he looked up at the Jumbotron.
Meanwhile, Kansas City has come out and said that they worked on this in training camp.
They had a presentation, like a PowerPoint presentation.
They were all about it.
And then they did it every week during the playoffs.
And by the way, it completely got thrown. Shanahan's whole logic went out the window because Chris Jones said that Kansas City already knew that if they went, let's say Kansas City scores a touch, or San Francisco go down and scores a touchdown. If the Chiefs had gone down a match, they were going for 2. They weren't going to let you have the ball 3rd. Their whole thing was, cool, we're going to win the game right here because they know giving the ball back to you, it's now sudden death. So Shanahan's whole logic got blown up by Kansas City's plan.
Because you need too many things to happen to get to that point.
It just seems so weird to think that far down. But, I mean, ultimately, that's not why they lost the game. And, 3rd and 4 at the whatever it was, 11-yard line, I mean, you convert on that, and it's at least it's a different ball game. At least Kansas City at that point does have to go for 2 to try to win it. But that's not where I'm going to rake him over the coals. And I'm of the belief that I think Kansas City won that game more than San Francisco lost it. But if I'm going to point to a couple things, 3rd down, 3rd and 12, or 3 for 12 on 3rd down, including 2 that one would have sealed the game for sure. The one where San Francisco had to settle for the field goal, the one where McDuffie blitzed, that play was open. If Purdy delivers that ball on time, Ayuk picks up a first down, and more than likely they bleed out the clock, kick a field goal, and the game's over. And that's one where Spags won on 3rd down repeatedly over and over and over again. And Brock played a nice game, and the Niners played a nice game. They just never made those little plays that Mahomes and the Chiefs always seem to make, and that ended up being the difference in the game, which is why I give credit to Spags, I give credit to their 3rd down defense, and I give credit to Pat Mahomes, who in the last 4 drives, and he had been flummoxed all game. He went touchdown, field goal, touchdown.
Well, at one point, Nance said they had 16 straight drives without a touchdown.
Yes.
Kansas City.
Yes. And
that was when I thought for sure this was going to come back to bite Andy Reid. but it's kind of a lost sequence now because of how the game played out. But at one point, right before Nance said that, Kansas City had to punt. That was when it sure looked like they were deep in their own territory. It sure looked like Kelsey got a first down.
Yeah, and didn't challenge.
And they didn't challenge it. And then the next play, it looked like they got a first down, or maybe they had to call a timeout or something. And they blew a timeout there. And boy, I thought that was going to come back to haunt him as San Francisco was driving down toward the 2-minute warning because Casey only had 2 timeouts instead of 3. Yep. When he could have gotten a timeout by just challenging, he may have lost, but it looked like he could have won that challenge, gotten the first down, kept the drive alive, and saved the timeout. Yep. I thought for sure that was going to come back and haunt Andy Reid, but it never did.
No, I think those 2 plays are the muffed punt off the ankle, which is just dumb luck. It's just absolute dumb luck. I really thought that was the turning point in the game.
I did too.
The Chiefs had no momentum. They were doing nothing on offense.
If San Francisco puts a drive together there, it might be curtains.
That's what I thought. Yeah. I thought if they take advantage of this, and this is where give Kansas City credit for bowing their back. San Francisco had multiple opportunities there, including after the Mahomes interception. Mm-hmm. And they did nothing. They had 3 drives where they went 3 and out, and they ran the ball once during those. And Kansas City's defense held tight until their offense got it going. But the offense really got picked up with that fumble. They scored on the very next play, and after that, it felt like Kansas City's offense just was working a little bit better. And up until that point, the San Francisco D had been lights out, and then I think towards the end they got gas. So, there's so many of these little plays, but I just go back to those 2 third downs, 3rd and 4, and basically 3rd and 4. One in overtime where Ayuk's wide open in the end zone and they don't block Chris Jones because they ran some weird convoluted pass scheme on 3rd down because they didn't believe that Spagnuolo was going to blitz yet again. And whether that was a botched play by the right side of the line or it was just a bad scheme altogether, either way, that play was a cluster F from the get-go. And I think Shanahan got way too cute. And then on the other one where it was a great disguise on the part of Spags, they brought McDuffie, and the difference between Brock Purdy, who's a very good quarterback, and Patrick Mahomes, who might be the best to ever play, is that right there. When you watch that play, Purdy has it. When you see a free blitzer, you have to throw the ball where he left and look at it. Go look at Ayuk is open at the sticks.
Wide open.
And all Purdy has to do is get rid of the ball on time, and he kind of panics a little bit and ends up trying to throw the outside slant.
That second hesitation is everything.
And it's done for. And you want to know why Mahomes finds ways to win these games? It's plays like that. Mm-hmm. How many times on those final 4 drives did Mahomes have to make a play, and he made it every single time, including being perfect on the overtime game-winning drive.
But you know what else he does really, really, really well that I think a lot of us as fans sit and scream at our TV that our guy doesn't do as much, whoever your guy is he... Especially on those key drives, he finds a way to extend or get yards with his legs.
Yes.
He's so sneaky good at running the football.
He's so good at that, but he doesn't do it unless he really has to. Mm-hmm. But he just has a knack for doing it at the exact right time. And it's like Purdy did it a little bit actually he did it a lot against Detroit in the second half. So Brock Purdy actually has a little bit of this too. But man, how many times are you yelling at your TV where you have money on a team or whether that's your team where you want your quarterback? Hell, Baltimore's probably doing this, yelling at the TV at Lamar. Like, dude, tuck it and run. You see any daylight, hit it. And that can be such a weapon, even though it's not, obviously it's not, it's improvised, but it's such, he even does that better than everyone else.
Yeah.
When it seems like it's just a luck play where, like a sliver of light and he hits it. But there's something about him knowing when to do that he gets it every time. It's almost like it's impossible to stop.
And how about on the 4th down where, again, brilliant call, but they ran a little read option and Mahomes was never giving that ball up. And, he ended up running for...
Well, that's a good example because Rice, I think it was open.
Yeah.
But this is why Mahomes is so smart. Mahomes is like, dude, I ain't throwing that. No. It's only need a yard. I'll get it.
I'm taking this.
Because he could easily throw it to Rice. What if Rice freaking drops it?
You never know.
But that's why this is why Mahomes in crunch time is so good is that, man, does that dude, and it's not like any of these plays are like super outlandish wild throws or wild, like, oh my God, that's amazing. Nobody else can do that. He just makes such sound decisions.
Well, it seems like he makes these plays 85 or 90% of the time, and it feels like the rest of the league makes him half the time.
Well,
He just seems automatic.
But how does he do it?
He's just
Because, like I said,
that's his greatness.
It's not like they're these. I mean, he does have those sensational plays where it's like, oh my God, nobody else can do that. But it's not like that. I mean, a lot of that was just a couple of runs here, a couple of little outs there.
It feels like savvy and feel for the moment.
You blitz him and he
that.
finds the right guy.
He makes the ordinary, or he guess that he makes the extraordinary look ordinary. One of the best things, and I thought did a nice job of highlighting it, and to me, it's one of the more maddening things if you play him was, and they pointed out multiple times, and San Francisco really did a nice job, is he almost dares defensive ends to come inside on him, dares them to. He has this weird little hesitation step that he does where he steps up in the pocket, and I swear to God, he is baiting you to he's like, come get me. And the moment you do it, he bails out the back.
And he buys himself 5-6 more seconds. He can run it. He can throw it.
And San Francisco did such a nice job for the most part keeping him in the pocket. And you just have to be so disciplined when you play him. There just isn't any weaknesses in his game. And again, I go back to that Purdy play on third down where he had that hesitation. I have no doubt that Mahomes and that same play against McDuffie either would have gotten the ball out or would have pump faked McDuffie, sidestep, and delivered the ball.
Yep.
And that's how many times do you see when he's under pressure, and he does, even when he scrambles, he has that little pump fake that he does, and it freezes everyone.
It buys him half a second, an extra step. It's genius.
But why is he so much better? Like their offense can do nothing.
Yep.
For a quarter, 2 quarters, and then all of a sudden they need it, and he can't be stopped.
Nope.
Explain that.
Well, I do think that some of that is Patrick and some of that is Andy Reid, and I think that no one does a better job of spending those first, again, I brought up the Floyd Mayweather thing earlier in the show. When you watch Floyd Mayweather fight, sometimes for the first 6 or 7 rounds, it's not that impressive. And all that he's doing is he's figuring you out. He's accruing all this data. And then they're like, okay, now we know what you're doing. Now we know what you want to do here. Here's our adjustment to it. And there's no one that does it better, maybe in my lifetime, than watching Mahomes and Andy Reid. 3 Super Bowl wins. They've been down by 10 points in each one of those games.
At least 10, yeah.
You know, it's
crazy.
There is something to that when, and this is why I'm confused a little bit with the way kind of Shanahan played some of those situations down the stretch. Why you don't take that into account, whether or not you're deciding to go for it on both 3rd and 4s, I don't get that. I really don't. You're telling me that with the way you're running the ball, when you decided to recommit to running it, and you've got 2 plays to get 4 yards on both of those situations, and one of those closes out the game, and the other one doesn't close it out, but at least it ensures that you are in the game basically no matter what, and you settled for field goals on both of those, basically turning the ball over to Mahomes and being like, we don't believe you can do it again. Those are the ones that bother me more than anything else. It bothered me more from a coaching decision than going to take the ball in overtime. I'm not saying everyone needs to be Dan Campbell, and sometimes I think he can be a bit much, but every now and then, God, have a little Dan Campbell in you and believe in your quarterback. And you have all pros littered across that offense, and you have 2 plays if you decide to do this to get 4 yards. I would rather win and lose the game on that.
And that's one of the huge knocks against Shanahan in his whole career is that he doesn't have enough of that in him, that he's a little bit too conservative, puckers a little bit too much. I read another stat that in the 3 Super Bowls that Shanahan has coached in, that also includes that Falcons one, that his teams have been outscored 79-24 in the second half and overtime. So comes out gangbusters, builds a lead in all 3 of them, and then just can't hold it.
He had double-digit leads in all 3 Super Bowls as head coach and offensive coordinator, and he's 0-3. So, I guess the only thing you can say to that is just like Andy Reid. Remember all the knocks on Andy Reid back when he couldn't get over the hump? Well, look at him now.
Yeah.
And, of course, Patrick Mahomes helps, but Shanahan has a great organization and a great team. So as long as he's paying attention to, some of the criticisms or some of his blind spots, maybe, then he can get better. He's a smart guy. He's not, you can improve as a head coach.
It is true because in his Super Bowls,
because Andy Reid Andy Reid was a joke when it came to clock management, and now he's like the maestro.
And with all due respect to talking heads and pundits, ourselves included, and we're pointing out this and pointing out that, realize that Kyle Shanahan is about 6 inches away from having 2 Super Bowls. I mean, he's one Jimmy Garoppolo overthrow, and like I said, how many different plays? It was like the anti-Lions game. We said in that second half with the Lions and the Niners, the Lions just had to make one play out of like 6 and they win that game. It felt like the Niners had 4 or 5 of those that if they just made one of those plays, the game would have gone differently and they could have iced that thing away. And unfortunately, they didn't. So, I have a hard time standing up here and criticizing Kyle Shanahan, who's a hell of a coach with a hell of a team, who really outplayed Kansas City for much of the game. But Spags, Reed, and Mahomes, when those 3 guys are there, it's really at this point, you bet against them. It's at your own peril. Because this wasn't even a great version of the Kansas City Chiefs, and yet they won another Super Bowl.
Well, their defense was pretty nasty.
Yes, it was.
All right. More on this is coming up. We can take your text messages on the Vancouver Ford text line. Your dollar goes further at Vancouver Ford. They treat you right before, during, and after the sale. VancouverFord.com. The number to reach is 503-864-6326. 503-864-6326. Yes, there were streakers, and the Tay over hit. You called that. What a lock that was.
Oh, 100%.
Almost doubled it up.